Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Williams. I am a Warren County Schools teacher. I am still a Warren County Schools teacher, and I absolutely love my job. I work alongside some awesome teachers. Shout out to all the teachers who are here today, especially those who teach beside me every day. I'll be sharing some stories that you've probably heard in the hallway and the teacher's lounge, whether you wanted to or not, but I'm going to say it again. My talk today is on From Dodge to Diaspora. Last time I was here, I talked about ancestral research as a means of shaping identity, and this actually extends that conversation. So the title, From Dodge to Diaspora, actually refers to a figurative place. As we continue to pursue this theme of the bridges, it's a bridge from Dodge, a bridge from diaspora that I'm still crossing today. I know from Dodge to Diaspora, Brian, is not two cars. I'm not talking about a car called a Dodge. I'm not talking about a new 2018 car called the Diaspora. I'm talking about the African diaspora, the diaspora that serves as a community, or serves as a home of all those individuals who at some point or another were birthed from the African continent. And the diaspora, when we speak about it, is a large, large place that touches most places of the globe. And my talk today will delve into that and kind of tell you all about this journey that I still am going on. So, started in the third grade. I have to start and tell you there. In the third grade, I remember hurting my back. It all starts with the back injury. But I jacked my back up, and I did it because I was showing off. This is this pretty girl. So this pretty girl was in my class, right? And she had the prettiest hair. She had the cool barrettes in her hair, pecan-colored skin, and she had eyes that smiled even more than her perfectly aligned teeth could. And every Thursday, I would show off for her. So I would go to the highest point in the playground that I could, and I was good at tumbling. Like my brother Anthony, he tumbles well, and my older brother Daniel, he really doesn't. But I do pretty good for myself. So I would go and I would do a back tuck, pow, and I would stick it every single time. And one day I missed it. But anyway, that was my Friday Eve ritual. And even to this day, my coworkers will tell you, Mike loves Friday Eves. But Thursday was my ritual, and I did it for her. And that changed. And it changed because there was this guy who moved down. He was a new boy. He moves down from the city, and he's totally urban. He's totally city. He's totally cool. He wore the white sneakers. His pants were always perfectly creased. And everything he had was new. I was everything that he wasn't. And the biggest thing about him, he was from up north, but we called it up north. But he was from up north. And the young lady, I'll call her Lauren. Her name's not really Lauren, but to protect the identity, I'm going to give her Lauren. Actually, I like hip-hop, so let's call her Lauryn Hill. But so Lauren took a shining to him, and she really liked him. And it took the attention off of me, and I really didn't like him at all. And we'll call him Tupac. We'll give him another hip-hop name. Anyway, so Tupac gets all of her attention at that point because he was from up north, and everything about him was really cool. I mean, his hands were always cleaner than mine. His fingernails even were a lot cleaner and clearer than mine were. They weren't dirty and black. Mine were dirty and black, like me, and that's how I felt. And it was a mentality that I carried around with me. It was this Dodge mentality. Dodge was a place. And if you Google it, Dodge is a city in Kansas. No, I'm not from there, obviously I'm from Warren County. But Dodge was a mentality. If you think about it, when people talk about getting out of Dodge, what do they say? Man, I'm about to get the hell out of Dodge. Why? It's a place that you want to go away from. You don't want to exist there. It's known more for what it isn't as opposed to what it is. It's a place that the have-nots hang out. And I was a have-not. I felt like a have-not my entire life. I carried that around with me throughout the years. And more so than a geographic place, it was a mental space that I existed in for a long time. There were feelings of inadequacy that I carried around for the majority of my life simply because I knew I wasn't that person. I knew I was here in the South in a place that wasn't going anywhere, a place that was marked by industry and cotton fields and tobacco fields and all these different things. So as I grew older, that kind of changed a little bit. And I had this mentality that, okay, I'm going to get out. At one point, I'm going to get out. I'm going to get away from this place. Not like Jordan Peele's Get Out, but it was akin to a sunken place that I existed in. But that all changed. And it began to change as I started getting away from this Dodge mentality, this mentality where my mind was constantly clouded with feelings of self-doubt because I existed in a rural space. And it changed once I met this group of awesome, awesome kids, awesome, awesome teachers who taught me to appreciate the value of my local experience, who taught me to appreciate the Soul Cities, who taught me to appreciate the rolling hills, the Carr Lake, the Lake Gaston of where I existed. And I began to find value in those spaces as I grew older. And I started researching my own personal ancestry. And I used my tools because I knew that my students existed in a space where my 80s, hip hop, pop music, Dodge had now melded in this more contemporary, fast-moving Dodge that my students carried in their head. And so to teach them the value of our local experience, we started doing projects like the Digital Oral Museum, a project where our students went around in the community and partnered with local seniors to collect their voices and their oral histories, which is characteristic largely of people who exist in the diaspora. My students also would do projects such as Park Spaces and Places, where we were just right up the street from here in Nathaniel Macon's grave with a 360-degree camera. And the students were kind of archiving and taking that space to be able to show it and tell other people about the value of their local experience. All of these things slowly but surely started to bring me out of this space. And I extended it from there, realizing that my job is to prepare them for life after school. Teaching them a project-based learning environment, we teach them these authentic project-based learning assignments and projects that are designed to promote critical thinking, communication, collaboration, personal agency, all of these things. But I realized that as a 2017, 21st century teacher, it was incumbent on me to connect those same students with the globe, to connect them and teach them the principles of becoming global citizens. And so we started pursuing projects. So we're still locally, and one of the terms I use is locally based but globally focused. And partnering with teachers like Katie Hunter, an awesome teacher who's in Scotland, Karen Olsen, who is in Slagelse, I hope I pronounced it right, Slagelse, Denmark. Daniel Pardo, who is now in Molina, Chile, and a good friend of mine and documentarian, Mr. Michael Markovsky, who is now in Japan with the idea of expanding. And while this is happening, I feel myself actually growing and growing and growing more and crossing over into this global mindset. When I was here in 2015, I envisioned a place that I ultimately wanted to go. And I talked about how I traced my ancestry, and I went back and I ultimately wanted to. And this is a magic place for me because after I stepped off the stage here at this place, a series of events started happening. I started beating the bushes. I started chasing opportunities to ultimately walk through that door. For those of you who may not know, that's the door of no return. It's in Cape Coast Castle. And while we focus on a large portion of the global experience, it's incumbent upon me to teach my students a largely, community of 58 to 60% African-American community, a community where in my classrooms it could be anywhere from 80 to 90%, but to teach them about these places, to teach them about the value of these places, to truly put this global awareness in the preparation of global citizenship in practice. Because to be perfectly honest with you, our knowledge of these spaces are couched in these 19th century Kipling-like notions of these dark spaces with jungles and dark bodies, when in actuality it's all about the people. And those are the things that I learned as I began to grow. So looking at these opportunities, I became involved with the African Diaspora Fellows Program, which is led by Dr. Kia Caldwell, as well as Emily Chavez. This is a UNC Duke partnership. And I connected with teachers all over the state who were focusing on doing the exact same thing. In addition, I became involved with the Global Teacher Fellowship with the Rural School and Community Trusts. And it was through that partnership that I was able to actually go to that place. I was able to travel and end up in this space via a project, another project, again, PBL, I love it. But it was called Chasing Blake. Chasing Blake was based on a gentleman by the name of Peter Blake. Peter Blake in 1675 went on a 18-month, year-and-a-half journey from Kent down to Cape Coast Castle into the Americas, forming the triangle that we know as the Triangle of Slave Trade. In my project, I wanted to do that. I wanted to travel. I wanted to touch the critical points of that triangle. But I wanted to bring teachers into the conversation to study the contemporary effects and the legacies of where we all stand right now. And so the teachers in the UK, and we were fortunate to connect with teachers in, say, for instance, Edinburgh, to go there. So I traveled there, and we talked, and we got the students involved. We got the students engaged. From there, I went to Liverpool, and it was a 29,000 plus mile journey that I went on. And we did it in 10 days. And I was driving, I'd never driven on the M5 before. It's crazy. Driving in Drury, Manson, Littleton, nothing like it. All right. I also went to London. But ultimately, I found myself in Cape Coast. It was an experience like none other. Because from the point that I got there, I got off the plane. And I noticed that I became comfortably anonymous. As I said before, I exist in a space where I'm only 10% of the 2% of the teachers in America, African American men. And so this idea of comfortable anonymity doesn't really happen a lot. But I got off and I stepped into a space where my often marginalized frame melded with these pure, unbroken mahogany bodies, this forest of mahogany bodies that are walking and living and breathing and existing in this space that was the cradle of what we consider to be the diaspora, and I was there, and I was walking. I felt an even stronger connection as I walked through the markets, and I would see elders who would look at me and say, hey, you have a Ghana face. He's a Ghana face. This is a little boy with the dirty fingernails who felt like he wasn't good enough. And now I'm merely walking through a market, feeling this sense of connection, no longer in the 2%, but in the 100%. From Dodge to diaspora, going from there, standing on the shores of the coast and hearing the waves crash. And as my wife stood beside me at night, we would go to sleep and we would hear the waves crashing up against the shore, and it was unlike any other waves. It was turbulent waves. This was a space that we never saw anyone playing out in the ocean, because there was something about that ocean. That ocean had witnessed the horror. And if you stand close enough, you can feel the ocean extend up to you. And a term that I heard yesterday talking with one of my awesome teachers, Miss Lee, who's in the office, she said, oh, that's pathetic fallacy. It's when nature takes on human characteristics. And I felt that. And at night, we would lay down and we would hear it. And I can only imagine how my ancestors were in this dungeon. And at night, they could hear this roar, constant roar, not 100 feet from where they lay, thinking about where they could ultimately end up. This otherwise life-sustaining force, water, is now becoming a menace that's taking them away. But I felt that power of connection, and I ended up in a place called Brenu, with some awesome students, some wonderful students, engaged students who I could see Dodge in their eyes as well, because I talked with one young man, Emmanuel, and I said, Emmanuel, what do you know about the United States? He said, the U.S. is the king of the whole world. The U.S. is the head of the whole world. And I wanted to tell him, Emmanuel, I would love to be where you are. I would love to be here. I would love to be in this place which you exist in. I live in what is arguably the country with the greatest opportunity. However, there's a part of me that exists inside you, and I would love to be able to help you extend that bridge over to understanding how powerful you are. And so we went on, and as I said before, the Chase and Blake Project, it was designed to connect Emmanuel. It was designed to connect Seth, who is in Liverpool. It was designed to connect my students here in this global conversation, just kind of talking. It's essentially a pen pal project that we talked about. But the next step in that journey, I realized so many things is that there's another pretty girl. And I flip for her all the time. Well, figuratively, yes. Not physically, that's what I meant. But there's another pretty girl who I'm enthralled with now. And she has a story. She has her own Dodge that she's existed in, having been born in a place 3,000 miles south of here, another part of the diaspora where, if you do your research, there were millions more Africans who ended up in Brazil. She was born in Bahia. And while we're connecting the 3 points of the triangle and focusing largely on the North American side of it, there is a large group of people who will go and will connect with in this idea of going from Dodge to diaspora. And understanding that the takeaways from this experience is the people. It's the Emmanuels. It's the kids along the way. It's the kids in my classroom. They're going to be the ones who are going to take what we're doing and leave from it. They're going to be the ones who are going to get away from these these early notions, late 19th century, actually early 20th century notions of what Africa is, of what these dark spaces are, what these people are, because the journey is all about people. And I'm fortunate to be in a position to be able to do that. But what's next? And I talked about the magic of this place, like how I went from here last time and all of a sudden, opportunities happen. So thank you, Lizard Creek, because the next step in the journey for me is to go down to South America, to go to Brazil, to discover the voices, to discover the bodies, to discover all of the students who are down there who want to know about where they exist in this larger diaspora. And so from Dodge to diaspora is a continuing journey that I am on. And if you note from the picture, I ultimately walked into that door, which is now the door of return. And I was told by the tour guide that the door of no return was converted to the door of return for all the Africans who were ever displaced from that place. And it was a way of them welcoming us back. So I thank you all for your time, and I appreciate you all listening from Dodge to diaspora. Thank you.